Hello. How you guys doing?
Illinois,
Another one. Okay, so for you. I wanted to ask, is there like a place where there's like all the shortcuts and as in the keyboard shortcuts and things?
In game, there's a keys button.
I just saw that. Oh, okay.
Yo, nice to meet you, fam. Mind telling me on which region did you make the lobby? Yeah, yeah. I was asking because I can't find it with the name Bar Academy. Uh, no, it
I
does
think
not
I probably
come
need to
up.
switch to EU.
I am, I am in EU. That's why I was asking. Yeah, yeah. Thanks. I was. It was passworded, and I had that checked. My bad, sorry. Yes, I know.
You said you put the password in chat?
Didn't quite understand, but I'll wait until you're ready.
That would be under advanced options.
Yeah, so 11, you can press the advanced options here, and there's quite a few options, but generally the most important ones are ranked. Obviously, you can choose whether a lobby is rated or not. Another common one would be spawn order. A lot of games, if they're rated, they'll probably have skill order on, which means whoever has the highest OS will pick their spawns first. And then, of course, Legion. Legions are sometimes also enabled. And then this is really more for scavs, but you might see extra units and scavs turned on. If there
A quick question about experimental options, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure thing.
What does the shield rework does?
So shield rework is quite simple. Essentially, currently the shields, the plasma deflectors, does what it says on the tin. It deflects plasma shots. So LRPC, Ragnarok's flagship main cannon shots, all those are plasma weapons, and they will bounce off shields. If you turn the option on instead of bouncing off, it will just delete it from the game. It will just absorb it instead of it bouncing off the shield.
Okay. Sounds like it makes them quite stronger.
It makes them a little bit better, but it's not really an official part of the game there. So it's not really something that's that significant, to be honest. Shields in general are not particularly significant, if I'm honest. You generally won't use them until quite late on. And even then, there are quite a few ways to bypass shields. Namely, vertical rocket units can bypass shields, and literally anything that isn't a plasma unit, right? Isn't a plasma weapon using unit, I should say.
Oh yes,
it does fix the issue of frontline shots bouncing into the backline, though. But that's rarely happening anyway.
That's exactly what I was talking about.
So
when I said it makes them stronger.
Yeah, so
no more
that it's like some people think it's a problem, other people think it's design. I'm not going to argue too much about what I think, but it's an option. You can enable it, but that's what it does essentially. So
okay, that's great. That's great to know. Thanks.
Yeah. And obviously, Experimental Legion. If you turn it on, it will enable Legion in the game. Not too much else to say there.
I played as Legion once and had no clue what the hell I was doing.
Yeah, so Legion is a little bit different. The main thing that's different about them is that they have access to a 2x extraction metal extractor in tier 1, and they also have metal extractors that don't cost any energy at all. In fact, they give you energy. They give you 7 energy, but they get a little bit less metal for that as a trade-off.
About what, 70 or 80%, right?
Yeah, so it's 80% extraction for the normal one. Which on paper may make Legion sound a little bit worse, because metal is usually the thing that you lack the most, but it honestly works out in a way that what's the plan? So the plan is to play a game and just answer some pretty basic questions if anyone has any, and then we'll talk about side tech and we'll play another game as well. Try to play probably some sort of laney map where side teching is going to be pretty impactful. That's the plan.
What do you exactly mean by side teching? Going from T1 into T2?
So tier 1, T2 will just be tacking up. So what I mean by side tacking is generally you would start bots quite often in a lot of maps, especially if the terrain is a bit rough and not too flat. Side tacking pretty much just mean going from one lab with an equal tier to another. So going from bot to vehicle, bot to air, etc, etc.
Makes sense. Kind of like how GOC play in Supremismos, from bots into ships.
Vertical there, yeah. Geo on Supreme is a very funny position. There's a lot of optimization going on for that one. Generally, they don't really lock themselves into anything. I think you very frequently see Geo go into tier 2 vehicles, artillery trucks, or going through a bazaar. Some sort of high impact tier 2 unit, and then go about your regular business of making tier 2 cons and that sort of thing. Ships is not ideal because ships is quite expensive even for a Geo start. Sea in general, it's quite expensive. So
I was talking about GOC position, not the
GOC. GOC. My bad. So
GOC position.
GOC is just C with more metal. If I'm honest, GOC is the richer C position, generally speaking.
Yes. Starting from bots for constructors, then going into C.
Not sure I would really call that side tech, but yeah, that is something that you do.
Technically, by definition, it is side tacking, but also as GOC, you just do the bots, so you can build bots. You don't do a bot army, so it's technically just not side tacking. It's more like bot start and then going into actual tech and then going vertically. So, but it's a question of definition on that case.
Yeah, generally when I say side tacking, I mean more like functionally you're using a lab, say bots or say vehicles, and then you're going to another lab in the same lane. So like land, for example, you're using bots for land, and then you switch over to vehicles. Or you may not even switch sometimes, you may keep both, which is actually what I like doing now. But yeah.
Okay, thanks for the explanation.
No worries.
Bots and vehicles can do some pretty nasty and funny combos at tier 1. Tier 2 as well, but yeah.
Okay, so is everyone who wants to play or sit in the lobby in the game? Are we missing anyone? Otherwise I'll start trying to arrange. If you're not seeing... Yeah, what Blue Cobra said. So yeah. Is everyone in the game?
Like that, I'm gonna go with spectator, I guess, to keep it fine.
Yeah, so that's the plan.
I don't mind just spectating. Probably would be better.
I'm just gonna set it to a 3v3 for now. Then it seems like we don't have too many people who want to play right now, which is fine. And we'll set it to a map of Geo, since we were talking about Geo so much. Got some good old Gazbag Ravens.
One question about the lobby.
Yeah.
How exactly should we play this not to break the learning curve for some more unexperienced guys that don't really know much at all?
Essentially, I want you to play fairly normally. Don't take it too easy, but probably also avoid just making 20 ticks and spamming everyone. It's not going to be that interesting, really.
Making what? Can you repeat, please?
Ticks.
Ticks.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Just try not to tick spam people like 30 seconds into the game. But other than that, try to play fairly normally.
Okay, so basically no rushes at all to allow everyone to
No,
settle.
I wouldn't say no rush. I just wouldn't. Just play a normal game, really.
Yeah. Well,
Just try to play a normal game, and ideally, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be a bit cheeky here. I'm actually just gonna join team and then self-delete my com when I load in, just so I can pop game commands in there. And I'm just gonna. I'm not actually playing. I'm just joining to be able to execute the pause commands and things like that. Is it this? No. So if you open the chat, you'll be able to insert the command in with /. So there's two types of commands. Ones that you can do from lobby, and then the other ones in game. The game chat ones are not bound to the lobby rules. You see a little crown next to my name in this lobby. That means I'm boss of the lobby, which is akin to hosting, essentially. When you try to call a vote in a boss lobby, it will let you, but the boss has the ability to immediately end the vote. Okay, anyway, I'm just gonna start. I think Odds just wants to join
How
the
do
game.
you immediately end the vote as a boss, by the way?
So you have to go to the lobby and then you have to do !EV.
Yeah, okay, I see. And a second question about that, how do you set min and max chef? Because for the love of God, I couldn't find the proper fucking,
Yeah, so that's a little bit convoluted, but essentially it's !min rating level. And
in one word.
max
Okay, I think that
rating
makes
level in one word.
I see, because I just did max and then left the space and then did it.
Yeah. No spaces until you enter the actual numerical value of what you wanted to set it to.
Can you min and max chevron as well, or
Yeah.
is it only
Yeah, you
level?
can indeed set the chev. It's just the same thing, but you place the word rating with chev.
Okay, perfect.
It's
Thank you.
min chev and max chev level.
Yeah, because I've also set up some new people lobby and I couldn't get, for the love of God, get the order in. So some people with like 600 hours intended to join and be like, well, I'm here now and I'm going to play. And you can imagine how that turned out.
Okay, so generally, see everyone has somewhat of a clue here, which is fine. Blue Corpus, you may want to start a little bit closer to the middle of these mexes here, just so your commander doesn't have to move whilst placing the metal extractors. Especially during the early game, you want your commander to be building, not moving. So moving as little as possible is what you want to do, really.
Give me 1 second, please. I gotta turn the in-game volume way down.
No worries. So, generally, what is considered a normal opening in the game in the current patch is to do 3 metal extractors into solar, I would say. It works on every single map now with no walk distance, which was as a result of the change of the new patch. And generally speaking, you can win. You just win after the solar. If you want to just win because the map is really win heavy, then you'll have to still do 2 solars, if you, 2 mexes rather. But otherwise,
Battle
3 metal
started.
retractor and the solar works on every single map. And generally, the goal of your early game is
Allied
to
commander self-destructed.
build your metal extractor,
Enemy commander
build as many
destroyed.
metal extractors as you can that's in your spawn. So sometimes spawns can have 2, 3, or even 4 metal extractors near them. You just want to make enough E-production to fund the metal extractors and the opening lab that you do. Generally speaking, you want to have around 70 energy for the bot lab, and a relatively full energy bar before building it. And for vehicles, you probably want a bit more, probably a bit closer to 90, which is your commander plus 3 solars, or your commander plus a solar plus maybe 3 to 4 windmills. And generally speaking, in terms of whether to pick bots or vehicles on this map, there is very little flat terrain. Vehicles struggle going uphill, especially up steep hills. So bots is probably the more preferred option here for all 3 spawns. And then in terms of getting metal, your goal is to use constructors and use your commander as soon as possible to expand to nearby metal spots. Essentially, the idea of your early game is to, for most people, will be to spend all your metal producing sufficient build power to replace your commander, and then use your commander to walk up as soon as you finish spending all your metal in the base. I see a lot of idle constructors here. You want to make sure everything is using their build power, or whatever they may be. In particular, your factory should almost certainly be making something all of the time, unless you happen to be saving for something bigger. Yeah, I like the adaptation here of going solar. But remember that there is reclaim on this map. All these green, funny, like, ball alien plant looking things on this map, they're all reclaimable for energy, and they're actually quite a good way of gaining energy when you are low on wind, instead of going for a massive amount of solars, which would deplete your metal stockpile very quickly.
Oh, yes.
And
I
like
completely
Geo-
forgot about it.
So generally, early game, you want to be a bit more active with your faster units. Try not to let them clump up in a spot that's not really doing anything. And if you do need to have them hold an area, try to spread them out. You see that little white circle around your pawns here, Kyoto? If you spread them out, that's your vision radius. You'll be able to see more, even with just the same amount of units in the same location. So what I will say about anti-air turrets is you needn't make them too early. Especially at some point you had vision of both cyan and green about 2 minutes into the game, and you can see neither of them has made an air lab. It's very unlikely for someone to eat their land lab and make air that early. And you already saw purple had land units, so the situation for purple's base is probably also similar. So I wouldn't worry too much about aerial defense in this case, because you know they simply can't have air. So M3, generally you're past the point where these scout units are like useful in combat, so I'll probably say make less of them and start to make what you are actually doing, which is incisors. Incisors is a very good unit. And generally, when you see your metal overflow like this, M3, actually I think both M3 and Kyoto, you both have quite a lot of metal in the bank. That's when you know you should probably be trying to build more stuff. You never really want to store your metal very often. You want to use it as soon as you can.
Even for Joe?
Yeah, so Otamu is definitely right there. Trying to avoid making energy converters. Even if you do make E-converters for your Geo, you obviously want to make them after you finish your Geo, not before. So like here, for M3 here, I probably wouldn't have made those energy converters. Especially if you're getting most of your energy from solar here, and I can see you've gone for a pure solar layout. You definitely don't want to be converting your energy, because to begin with, your solar collectors are not very metal efficient in gaining energy, so you don't actually have a large excess of energy, despite what it may seem right now, because you didn't make anything for a while, so you had a lot of energy in the bank. And generally what I'll say is, for the blue side actually won quite a lot of the early skirmishes, but you didn't particularly take too much advantage of it. You don't really want to store your momentum and be scared by a few flimsy turrets. If you have a big army advantage, you should really like press it and try to gain something of value there. An impressively large army sitting on the top of a hill is not really gaining you any benefits. Okay, so some big fights happening now. So for Livin here, I would probably say you could have probably realized you weren't winning that fight by just seeing the sheer numbers of yellow. I would have probably retreated a little bit earlier. And same thing for orange there. You had a decent idea of how big their army is on the hill, so I probably wouldn't have tried to attack that solo, because you know you're probably likely going to lose. You see how this big 2000 metal field between pink and green is now on the floor? Green is going to have a much easier time trying to secure that. And in general, if you start seeing these big reclaim fields occurring from won or lost fights, you want to be on top of gaining the metal from it, whether that's using the commander to reclaim or making some resurrection bots from the tier 1 bot lab to help you do that. So M3, I'll generally say, you know they have very heavy fortifications in that area, so you should have probably went on earlier to see whether their other positions are also fortified. In which case, in this case, they're not. So you've actually gained much more value out of your units than you would have otherwise suiciding into green. And with faster units, in sizes, that's generally what you want to do. You don't want to be fighting head-on most of the time. You want to be trying to find gaps. So that is a very nice breakaway. And you're either going to make green retreat a lot of their army, or get a lot of value from this push. Because light blue is focused on fighting yellow on the other side of the map. So generally, quite a decent attempt to go in T2 here for green here. I think the only thing I would probably say is the top half of the hill you didn't really have any presence in. So orange found the gap and broke through. In general, you're probably still in a pretty good spot. I can't see your base currently because I'm specking as a member of the red team, but I can generally expect you to probably have, I would say, 1 or 2 tier 2 metal retractors by now, judging from the tier 2 unit timing.
If I may, feel free to also stop me, Sora, by the way, but for orange, keep in mind most of the units can fire while moving. You lost a lot of valuable time in the push there by stopping. You could have just driven into the enemy base and did a little bit more instead. Because you stopped to shoot there, you basically got stopped before you were able to reach the enemy green base, even though there was literally only one defense turret and one tank there.
Yeah, absolutely. In sizes particularly, in sizes of unit where it's balanced around the speed, you really need to leverage the speed. Otherwise, it's not that great of a unit stat-wise, if I'm honest. So, you do want to be on the move for any units that can be on the move while firing. Some units, most notably artillery, cannot fire while going backwards. And here, Cerberus, I would probably generally just not pushed into that, because you know you have less of an army up there than the enemy. So I like this play, but you now need to do something with it. You generally don't want to be AFK any of your factories. And remember, you can always reclaim the tier 1 factory for full value if you're not happening to use it anymore. Another pro tip for anyone who's not on the Cortex vehicle tier 2 lab, or tier 2s other than that lab has a combat engineer of some sort. And they are actually able to make varying tier 1 structures.
An allied commander has died.
Once again, similar tip to the one from orange before now for the other team. Keep in mind, if you have the advantage, to check it out and at least see what the enemy is doing. If you get the advantage and retreat, you don't know what is happening.
And Kyoto, I like the idea of using the high ground there for the gauntlet. But at this point, it's no longer in range of much at all, and you could probably reclaim that to make something a little bit better with the 1350 metal there. Or 1300 metal it is now. Oh yeah, Gauntlet's technically got a buff, right? Build time or something like that, anyway. So Kyoto's got a decent comp going here, nice. Okay, so good comms. What I'll say, Kyoto, is if you're gonna make units, yeah, make fiends, yeah, perfect. Just making the faster units to defend the random base there. Okay, I was wondering how Kyoto is actually affording all of this, but then I realized I think it's actually because mainly of Cerberus floating so much E here. Cerberus, I would say this amount of E is a little bit too much for what you're producing. It's not really anything that you can take back anymore at this point, but generally you want to take care of your M and E bar and try to scale both somewhat linearly. Having too much E means you'll make massively inefficient energy converters to turn the E into metal, which is not really something you want to do ideally in the tier 1 phase.
Gotcha.
What about energy? Can you repeat, please?
Sorry?
Can you repeat what you just said about energy, please?
So generally you want to scale energy and mass, oh, sorry, not mass, wrong game, whoops, metal, fairly equally, so that you are only producing the E that you actually need to consume. If you produce too much energy, your only two choices are reclaiming it, or making energy converters to turn your energy into mass, which is a very inefficient way to gain metal. I keep saying mass today, I don't know why. Anyway, and also, generally I would say here, Cerberus, you're quite behind in terms of economy compared to your teammates. What I would have probably done is just advise your teammates that you're pretty behind, and see if they can spare you a tier 2 constructor to start upgrading your metal extractors for more metal income.
I know I'm behind. Like I said, I haven't played in over a week. I said I didn't say I was gonna be good.
It's all good, man. I'm just giving you advice. Don't worry about it. Generally, whoever goes tier 2 first on your team, you most likely will want to give the tier 2 constructor to your teammates, rather than getting everyone to make their own tier 2 lab first.
Okay.
You're overflowing metal.
Because Renfrey, what I'll say is generally you probably want to read the state of the game there. You can see Green's army from your radar, and you know you're probably not winning that fight right now, so I probably wouldn't make more tier 1 units that are simply going to be fodder. I'll probably try to make some higher impact units, or focus solely on improving your economy there. And remember, generally speaking, you want to reclaim your solars once you have more efficient forms of energy. So for the Geo players, generally it's advised to start reclaiming your solars once you have your AGO up. And especially if you have fusion reactors, you definitely want to be you definitely want to be reclaiming your solars at that point.
Props to Green on this point for embodying the theme of today's Academy thing, lesson or whatever. I know you can't see it, but Ots probably saw it already.
Nice. So I really do like Kyoto's unit composition here. What I would say is just that know your advantage. You could have probably done this push a lot earlier and gotten the same result there.
Enemy commander destroyed.
And do address the blue team.
I will say something about that in the end as well, because that's exactly what I was referring to.
Aircraft spotted.
Fair enough. Okay, so we got tier 1 air coming out. So generally bots don't have any hybrid options to deal with air on my vehicles. So you see, this is what I mean. Like you could have just reclaimed these solars and probably made a fusion. Generally speaking, you don't really want to be mass making solar collectors like this, especially on a map where wind is pretty decent. It does appear like we're generally coming to the end of the game here. See what happens. I do like this little constructor turret farm here. It's going to be able to eat those stouts out pretty quickly.
An allied commander has died. Warning, your team is down to its last commander.
I think somebody's echoing quite badly down in the background. You can just find yourself and maybe toggle your background noise filter. So it's is M3 in the chat? M3, are you in the voice chat at all? You are a different name. Okay, right, not a problem. Orbis. Okay, I see. All right.
Wondering, is there gonna be another game?
Yeah, there'll be another game. Yeah, there'll be plenty of opportunities to play tonight. Not to worry at all.
That'd be nice.
Ooh, nice D-gun. So I think generally, my advice to basically everyone on red team here is that, especially you, Kyoto, you had quite a good economy already. You didn't really need this AFUS.
Yeah, I wanted to make swap
Yeah.
into T3, but
Yeah, ideally you could have. I do like how you actually managed to upgrade all the metal extractors to tier 2. That was nicely done. But generally, you want to. It's very rare in small teams that Advanced Fusion Reactor is to play, if I'm honest. Especially as Cortex, you have quite a good fusion and AFUS in terms of build power and metal cost efficiencies and whatnot. When you are in a small team setting, you don't really want to make AFUS advanced energy extractors unless you really have to. And that game was not like a very standstill game for you. There was a lot of opportunities where if you made like, you know, units instead of the AFUS there, you could have had a pretty good chance at just breaking through and winning the game that way.
yeah, I retweeted when I saw those tigers in my base.
Yeah, then generally, if the game is at a bit of a standstill and it's not really viable for units, on a small map like this, consider LRPC. Right, you put an LRPC on the uphill, and it hits like the whole map with the terrain advantage, and it becomes very powerful and very expensive to stop.
Makes sense.
An
To be honest, I
commander
never
has
used
died.
LRPC.
Yeah, so LRPC is one of those things where it's like, it fits the bell curve meme very well. Noobs think it sucks, or noob thinks it's good rather, and then the middle players thinks they suck, and then the pro players actually use it still. And that's generally the bell curve meme, but LRPC is often a better try at breaking heavily fortified lines than nukes are.
I'm not gonna lie, the only time I used the plasma cannon was when I reached about 1.2 metal per second and I made a calamity.
Yeah. So generally, I would probably consider LRPC as the better game, not game ender, but like static position enders over nukes. Generally, it's much harder to cover a large area with plasma shields than anti-nukes, and LRPC is infinitely cheaper than a nuke is. So.
And the shield is way more expensive for the area covered than an anti-nuke.
Yeah, okay, Odds, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make Odds the boss of the lobby here, and I'm actually just gonna review that replay real quick, because I am kind of curious to see what the other team did as well. So we're just gonna quickly go through this game. I pretty much said what I wanted to say for the most part for my team.
Since I was actually able to spectate both sides, may I do a quick rundown about the most important things to point out, maybe? If not,
if you have some things to add, but I think with how replay works, you can't rewind. So I think what I'll do is I'll just go through the replay chronologically, and if you have things you would like to share, then feel free.
Yeah, because we could go with further to basically sum it up. First of all, shout out to Kyoto, because that was pretty well done, and the second point would be the fact that I forgot the color, but the first push, which got stopped by one tank, could have won the game for left side, and afterwards the right side could have instantly won, but they decided not to. If that makes any sense.
What about that push?
So with that push, you stopped your tank rush to shoot at one unit. If you would have just driven into the enemy base, that would have pretty much killed one or two bases, like one for sure, maybe a second one. We will.
We'll get to that in a minute.
Exactly, and All good. And the second main thing was at one point we will see, and I'm sure it will be something Sora will also see. At one point, left side did a push with all its army, lost the full army, and on the left side there were 2 defense turrets on the bottom half of the map. And right side had an army of like, I don't know, 10 to 20 units with green and 10 to 20 units with yellow. And knew they just killed pretty much every defender and then decided to retreat and do nothing. If they would have just gotten in there, it would have literally already won the game at minute.
Yeah, generally
12 or
speaking,
something? I don't know.
what Maximus is describing there is just if you have an army and you've just won a fight, don't just stop there. See if you can get anything more out of it. Oftentimes,
Yeah.
the answer is yes. Very rarely will players have more than one large front line. The stuff close to the base tends to be a lot more vulnerable than what you've just already killed at the front there. So if you won the battle, if you won the hardest battle at the front, most likely is you can hit all the eco full pretty much free. So
Yep, I was
Or
about
to-
to say
to-
I
to
could have been
come-
taken out multiple times.
Yeah,
yeah,
or to make it even easier, if you win a fight, check out what's in the fog of war, because in that case there was literally nothing defending there, and you had a big army, and you didn't even check what was where. You just assumed, oh, there's gonna be so many defenses, I'm not gonna attack. If you would have walked in, you would have seen there's nothing there, and you would have known you already win the game. There's no harm in going forward, even if you see, oh shit, there's a big army, you can just retreat and you're safe.
Yeah,
But
Thinking
in
about
this case, the other
defenses,
one, if
would
it's
it be
not
like
there-
a good? How do you recommend to build defense turrets? Because I've seen multiple advice about this, saying you should avoid building turrets. You should defend with units.
so
But, like,
generally
I've
the
often seen in
reasoning
games.
Generally, the reasoning for why we recommend using units instead of these turrets here, if you make a note of, say, the sentry here, it's 85 metal, right? A pawn is 53 metal, and one pawn definitely does not beat a sentry in a straight-out fight, right? You'll need at least about 3 to reliably kill the LLT and not have the pawns die. The difference between a laser turret is that a laser turret can only hold a range of 430 where it's built, and the pawn can move. It doesn't seem that significant at first, but unless the map is pretty choky, which this map actually is, so there's more of a justification for turrets on this map. So turrets like here and here, and here, for example, are pretty good because they cover the whole choke. Generally speaking, units can be in more than one location. They can move, they can attack. Turrets can't attack. You place a turret there, the 85 metal is stuck there now. It can't move forwards and use the value to hit the enemy, for example, somewhere here. So that's generally why you want to build army, because army doesn't just defend, it's also able to attack. That's the main purpose. Now, of course, if you're defending against something like scavs, right? For example, if you play raptors or scavs, you don't defend with units early on. You're probably using turrets for a lot of the game, because against AI, you know they're just gonna funnel enemies into you one at a time, into your turrets, getting killed. Generally, units lose equal metal value trades against turrets if you're actually fighting. The problem is, the units can be shooting a lot more often than your turret can, because you don't need to walk into the range of a laser turret for it to start firing. A pawn, rather, to start firing. The pawn can come to you. That's generally why people say defend with units, not turrets, because, well, units can move.
This does heavily defend and switch with skill level and playtime, especially in the earlier ones up to, I would say, Chef 3 or 4. The defenses are well because people are still in the mindset of, this is my lane, I have to attack here. But the second you got some people who know more, they will see, oh, there's defense turret, well, I'm just gonna go one lane up and we 2v1 the other person. And then
Yeah.
you can't help your teammate and he's gonna get overrun.
Absolutely.
So it really depends on the lobby. If you are in new people lobbies, defenses are quote unquote actually better because they will do AI and like run units at it. But the second you have a good player, he will see, oh, there's defense turrets here. I'm just gonna walk up and see if one lane up there's defense turrets. If there's none there, you go there. The similar thing with the we will see later in the battle of the army was destroyed. now you go up and check what's there and see where you can go through. And don't think I can only go right. Keep in mind you can go up and down. Same thing for the bombers, by the way. That's one thing I totally forgot to say. The bombers, I think, even on this map, can fly outside of the map. There's no need for them
Indeed,
to
they can.
fly
Yeah,
over the
you can
middle.
do this.
So the second you tech tiered, good job, Green, by the way, because that was today's motto, like the go to the vertical. No, the other one tech. You could have just flown over the back and basically bombed them as well, just as a note. But I'm sure Sira will say something about
So
that as
just
well.
as a tip on this map, you can fly outside of the map and do a ring like this. Just keep in mind, you see these rather large hill formations. Bombers have a really hard time gaining or losing, actually, just gaining height. So they go really slowly if you tell them to go above something that is relatively tall. So in this case, if you wanted to drive out of the map, I'll probably take something like this line, kill Blue Cerberus here, and then just fly here, and then kill M3 here. Neither of these players had anti-air at the time, so with your like however many bombs you had, you could probably finish the game in one bombing run.
Once again, also heavily skill reliant. Good players will have a radar tower in their base to see these kinds of rushes outside of the map. But if people forget and they only build a radar tower in the middle of the map or on the front, they will not see it, and then you can do whatever you want because the bombing run will just come out of nowhere, basically.
Yeah, so generally, I'm just going to show you the edge of the map here is actually this box. It's not the land. So you see where I'm hovering over the radar here, this is the edge of the map. So you could have absolutely just flown through here, essentially. And this is why, partially, just spamming radars everywhere is good. Radar, if you popped like a radar, I don't know, I think the commander can build one here, let's say, you would have seen the bomber from here, right? That gives you a lot more time than if you saw it right here, right? Which is what you would see it as if you had no radar, right? So you have now probably about 5 seconds to react instead of about 1. So yeah, quite a big difference. In general, scouting in this game can be difficult at times. There's not that many ways to scout if the enemy front line is heavily fortified. Air scouting is certainly a thing, and you could have done the reverse, right? Just because the bombers can fly there doesn't mean any other planes can't fly there. You could have flown a scout all the way around the land army here and just taken a look at the base. Did they build air? Okay, well, I'm going to make fighters, I'm going to make anti-air. So generally, you want to use the information you get from what limited scouting you're able to do naturally, and also think about ways to gain information on your enemy. Particularly air, it's very important to see if you can try to spot an air lab while it's being built before the bombers come through to your base, because it's not really possible, even if you had a radar. You see the bombers right here, right? You're still not going to have enough time to build enough anti-air to protect your base, because, well, you have like 10 bombers coming. You're not going to stop it with like a single nettle that the commander built, right? You're going to need time to prepare the anti-air there, or make a tier 2 manticore or something. So generally air, especially in a small team setting, relies on surprise. Once you know the air is out, it's very easy to stop metal-wise, right? Bombers are very expensive in metal and E. You can anti-air them down without significant damage to your base for a lot less metal and energy investment than what they put into the bombers. Anyway, so that's enough about air. Let's so I know M3 was asking about the solar versus wind. Generally speaking, right, if you hover over the wind speed, it actually tells you it is better to build solar collectors if the wind speed is below 5 of your Armada, 6 of your Cortex. What that effectively translates into is you want to be mainly making wind and only use solar if you don't have any energy and you need energy and the only thing you have is mass, or if the wind is abhorrently low, which it was for this game for a while, by the way. Good job on Kyoto for making solars to compensate for the low wind. I think we'll see that in just a moment here. But the other thing you can do, reclaim, right? Reclaim the energy. Very important that you make note of energy reclaim. Very powerful tool.
I think Cookies was talking about his favorite unit, and the best thing in Academy chat today. Resbot actually is quite high on the high up on the list as well, because you can repair, you can rest, and you can reclaim.
Yeah. So I think I saw some.
At least one singular or two respots are not gonna be worth 100% their own cost.
Yeah. So what I'll say is, you can think about it like this, right? Even from a pure economic sense, if you build a windmill, that's 43 metal for Cortex, 40 metal with your Armada. A Resbot is 130 metal, so it's about 3 windmills, right, give or take. 3 windmills on this map, right, on average, let's say it's about 12, so it's about 36 energy or so that you're gaining if you just made winds with that metal. Which is nice, but your one Resbot can take all of this, and this is the part that really stinks about Reclaim. There is no standardization with how much energy you get from reclaiming energy trees. You just have to know. For example, on Supreme, if you're reclaiming trees with Resbot, it's like a gazillion energy, basically. It's always worth to make Resbots to reclaim for the energy. On this map, I can't remember, to be honest, the exact value, but it should still be better than just not having the Resbot, basically.
It should be around 4 or 5k based on how many trees there are on one side of the map.
Yeah, so there's often like several thousand energy in just reclaim, so it's absolutely worth it to target it. But yeah, essentially, solars are worse than winds on average. For a vast majority of the maps, the average win is good enough where wind is simply more metal efficient. However, solars don't cost any energy. They are more build power efficient, which means they are faster build time wise to get the same amount of energy from. So one solar extractor, for example, is faster to make than 2 windmills, just as an example here.
Solar is good for short-term reaction, and windmills are better for long-term, because even if wind is going apparently up and down, with some energy storage and planning ahead, you're easily able to bridge that.
Yep, absolutely, and you know, just chucking it out there, reclaim, right? Reclaim is another way you can save yourself from e-stalling because the wind is low. Just a small thing here, a little bit more of an advanced tech, but you can metal extractors actually self-destruct fairly quickly. You can, if you see some like ticks or rovers or whatever, you can actually self-destruct the metal extractor to kill most scout units. And it's actually quite hard to get the scout to avoid this death, unless they're actively looking out for it.
That big? I didn't know that. That's interesting, actually.
Yeah, so the self-destruct actually does enough damage to kill scout units. It can even kill grunts or pawns if they're close enough, but generally grunts can fire from far enough away to not die. But pawns definitely, and ticks definitely, rovers definitely. Anything with 180 range, generally say in the scout category, you can try mechs self-D'ing as a final resort. If you know it's going to die anyway, might as well take some of the enemy scout units with it.
Fair point. Really good tip to know.
So, yeah, in general, at this point, I do like that you're actually reclaiming, which is nice. The only problem is you're not actually making anything at the moment. And I can see that your labs were actually AFK for a large part of the game here, M3. And I already mentioned this in the game, but anti-Eta are too early here. You've already gotten info on all 3. You know all 3 players are on land labs. There is no way they can switch to an air lab and rush a bomber that quickly. So you don't really want to be preemptively making too many anti-airs, because they do nothing unless the opponent actually has planes, which you know they don't. So just a thing, Kyoto, you can see these are pawns and blitzers. Grunts actually have a very fun time fighting pawns if you have the attention span for it. You can simply kite them out. Pawns don't catch up with grunts fast enough if the grunts are walking backwards. So the grunts will actually kill the pawns before the pawns kill grunts if the grunts are running backwards. So just a unit-specific matchup to note there. And yeah, again, I think the solar, I'm not going to repeat myself too much, but generally don't make mono solar. You want to be making solar only when you're kind of desperate for energy. And again, you have this reclaim around your commander. You could have just reclaimed that instead of making these expensive energy converters, which cost you a lot of energy by just placing them down. Same thing with construction turrets. If you're poor in energy, don't make them. They're very expensive. They're 3,200 energy. You can make 2 whole vehicle plants for that. So not a great idea to make construction turrets if you're already poor on energy.
Do watch out on your metal and energy income, especially talking to M3 here, because in the end you were overflowing on both and you didn't have enough production to use it, basically. So
if I'm honest, at this point, you're already floating a lot. And I like the energy storage. I just feel like you probably placed that because you were floating, which is not really something you want to do. Obviously, I saw you build Geo a little bit later, and it's fine to make an E-store to build the Geo, because the Geo is actually quite expensive. If I just pop it up here. Geo is 13,000 energy, so relying on just wind with no storage is very risky, right? You're at a very high risk of stalling at some point during your Geo. So energy storage, great, right? It's fine. The metal storage, however, not a great idea. You never really want to make this outside of very niche reclaim lab plays in tier 2 phase.
Talking about storage, why is the energy storage such a good idea overall?
So it comes down to metal is hard to make and easy to store. And by easy to store, I mean it's very easy to spend it, right? Energy is easy to make, right? You can make a lot of energy very quickly, but it's hard to store. So, right, solar is 20 energy per second. I can only gain 50 energy max from putting down the solar collector. So within 2.5 seconds of me making the solar, I need to find some way to spend this new E income, otherwise I'm floating and wasting that solar collector I just made. The other thing about energy is, especially if you're on wind, energy income is very volatile, metal is not. Metal income is pretty constant, outside of reclaim of course. Energy tends to fluctuate a lot, and having that safe buffer will save you from stalling in a lot of cases.
Good example for that is actually pretty common eco build, where you go into starting maxes plus windmills and then a storage. Because especially early on you can't spend all the energy, so it makes sense to go in early storage so you have the energy to then go faster into tier 2. So
don't you spend all the energy you get from 3 or even 6 windmills on constructors because they require so much energy, have such a small
or yeah, it really depends on what you go, but in general it makes sense to think ahead on if you're going to do something that requires energy or not, because then it's a decision of if you want to build a storage or not. It really depends on what you want to do, basically.
Yeah, so Thomas just put a good point there in the text chat for the voice chat. Essentially, different units and buildings, even in the same tier, can have very vastly different energy consumption. Right. The most common example. The most common example is construction turrets, right?
20k.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, anyway, so construction turrets cost a lot of energy, right? They cost a lot of energy to make, and because you're gaining the extra build power, you need extra E to be able to use the build power. So they're double E expensive in that sense. So what E storage helps is it helps fund one-time big E investments also. So that's why it's very common to have energy storages before going tier 2, because the tier 2 lab and the subsequent tier 2 mexes that you most likely build out of it in the tier 2 con, that is a lot of energy. But depending on what units you go after that basic economic upgrade, that would fluctuate your energy income. Do you want to make a fusion? Do you make a Tsar? Tsar is very energy expensive, it's 28,000. But if you just want to make, let's say, Fiends or Sheldons or whatever, they don't take as much energy, right? They take a lot less energy. So
and when they fire, they consume energy too. So we gotta be
so some units also consume energy on firing. Some units pretty much cost energy by existing, so jammers, for example, and all sorts of things like that. So that's why it's generally good to have an energy buffer. You don't exactly know how much energy you'll be spending because of these all varying factors. Are your units firing? Are your units not firing? Etc. etc. Right? Especially light laser turrets, a staple of pretty much every bar game. They cost 20 energy to shoot. Right? That means it's a whole solar extractor just to spend firing this. Right? But then the thing is, light laser turrets, they don't always fire, right? There's not always going to be a tick to kill. So then you are not using the solar collector, right? So do you build it or not? Well, the answer is just build an E storage so you can afford to fire it for the short time that you need to spend the E on the light laser turret. So I know that was a very complicated and convoluted explanation, but essentially, storage, good for one-time expenses, good for unexpected win crashes, right? What it does not replace is long-term consumption, right? It does not provide you with any extra energy per second than if you didn't have the storage. So only make the storage if you need to support your win economy with some reliability, or you're about to make some sort of big investment, whether that's a geo, multiple construction turrets, tier 2, etc., etc. So that's generally the idea behind the energy storage. So we're gonna just fast forward here because honestly not too much happens until that little rush that we see a little bit later. And what I will point out is generally I see a lot of units standing in line. You don't want to do this, right? You see all this free space. You could have most likely ran these blitzers across, right? Make note of the radar's blind spots here. You wouldn't have known this, but even radar have blind spots. So once you get here, the enemy has no way of knowing where you went, right? So fast units, generally don't stick them in a line. Try to find gaps in the army if you can, right? Not too much else to say there. Let's carry on.
You mean like one by one, or what did you say?
No. So
you can move them in a line, just don't stand still in a line.
Yeah. So you have 7 blitzers here, right? Obviously, you can't make 7 at a time. You would have made these one at a time until you reach 7. So you could have sent them in one by one just to check out what we're seeing essentially. Also, generally a good idea to make a scout instead of the stout here if you're going to go for a blitz. The scout will give these blitzers much needed vision to avoid a commander. So
to expand on that, there's nothing stopping you to move forward. If you go forward and you see something is shooting back, or there is something, just turn around and you're good. And you already did more and no more than if you would have stayed at the same spot.
Absolutely.
Especially if this early on, there's no like artillery strike or long range thing or cloaked commander that could instantly wipe your forces. Most of the time there will be something walking up, but when you can react and retreat, and once again you already know more than if you would just stand defensively and do nothing. Great example later on will be after, now the colors are there, after the orange push, where orange could have gone through and then blue and green basically had the winning thing and decided to just stay there and do nothing, even though there was 1 or 2 LLTs stopping like 40 units on the other side.
Okay, I'm actually curious to see what this fight looked like. I wasn't paying too much attention at the time, but really Pink could probably do a lot here with this push and probably wipe out this stuff. Let's just see what happens in this fight. So you definitely have the unit value advantage. So I think the number one thing I see here is why are these this far forwards? Yeah, the Rocketeers should be about here, realistically. Not getting
Good reaction on the
flanked.
flank from the south, by the way, with green there.
Yeah.
Pretty instantly reaction to help
Yeah.
defend.
Yeah, good reactions from green, but again, you want to not be just controlling your units in one big ball. Some units are better at frontlining, other units, they need to stay further back because they're fragile. And then, generally, I think it turned from a pretty good fight to a pretty miserable one now, because of that, really. The rockets died too quickly, and you realistically don't want to stick around for too long, right? If you see you're losing the fight, instead of losing all your units in one big ball and leaving the reclaim field in your opponent's ballpark, you have free space here. You know this doesn't have much because your ally has a radar here, right? So you know this area is free to retreat to. You could have just tried to walk your units that way a little bit, just to stop them from dying as much. And along a similar vein about turrets versus units, you generally don't want to put turrets down if you already have units in the same area, unless you're trying to move those units away.
About controlling units, how do you select all units of one type quickly? Because I've been double-clicking with them, but like...
So, yeah, double-clicking is one way.
Fighters especially, it's annoying.
Yeah, so double-clicking is one way. Area selecting all your units and then just line moving them is another way. The way I like to use and what most people like to use is if you select something, if you select a unit type, and you press Alt plus a number, it will assign it to a control group so that, for example, if I have, in fact I do have incisors on 2, for example, I select incisors, I press Alt plus 2, incisors are now in my group 2 slot, so whenever I press 2, incisors will get selected, no matter where they are on the map.
Does it apply to all incisors or just the ones you selected? Because
yes and no. So auto groups, what I just described there, yes. However, there's something called control groups, which are very similar, but they don't carry across games.
That's one thing.
Yeah, Otsa also lets you know that you should say a little bit more about auto group and the different grouping types, by the way.
Oh yeah, for sure. So essentially, there's two main styles of grouping. The game uses 1 to 0, I believe it was. So you have 10 slots, and you can actually have multiple rows of 10 slots, but I find that a bit clumsy, so I don't personally use it. But Alt plus the number binds it to an auto group. An auto group does not care what game it's in. It's permanent. It carries across your game. As long as you're on the same copy of the game, it will remember it. If you put the pounder on number 1 with the auto group bind, Alt plus 1, it will remember that. Unless you decide to unbind it, every time you press 1, you'll get every single pounder on the map at the same time, selected. Control groups, which you can quite simply, press Control plus the number, you then set a control group. So you can set, say, control group 5, and that is not remembered after the game is over. It remembers just what you've selected that game. So if I, for example, this army here, right? In my binds, I would have scouts, these incisors, and the pounder in different groups. If I wanted to say push 1 pounder, 1 scout, and 2 incisors up, I would simply select these, control group them to something, I don't know, let's say 5 or whatever you don't have bound, then 5 now becomes just these units. These specific 4 units I have added to the group. No new pounders you make from the lab will be added to the group. No new incisors or new rovers.
That's one thing I know, but like, let's say I have a huge swarm of fighters, and I have some bombers in there.
Yeah.
Selecting the whole swarm of fighters by double-clicking just one is very fucking annoying. So sorry for the language.
Yeah,
but
that's good.
So how can I select them all at once quickly without selecting the bombers, which I don't want to have in my fighter group?
So simply click the. So I imagine what you're referring to the situation is when you have some form of urgency, right? You have urgency,
Yeah,
so
like
you want to
I have
quickly
a
select the
bunch of
fighters
units
without fumbling
and
around.
can get moving.
So what you can do is, I personally, for fighters specifically, I bound it to, I think it was 9 or whatever it was. I bound it to auto group 9. So whenever I have a fighter swarm, I just press 9, it selects all my fighters. Right. That's what I do. You can use control groups if you would like. So for example, maybe I made some tier 1 fighters and I only want to select the tier 1 fighters that I've made. I double click the tier 1 fighters when I'm not doing particularly much. I control group, bind them to a new control group, and then whenever I need them, I just press the bind, right? Let's say I press control plus 0, all my tier 1 fighters are now on 0. I just press 0 whenever I want them and it will select all of them, right? So, I can't really show you this in a replay, but I hope that explains the auto groups and control groups.
Like,
yeah.
So basically, make an alt group to have easy access to a certain type of troops.
Yeah. So alt
then,
groups for just
control group to have like a special troops.
Yeah.
Because as you said, you don't want to send an artillery bot into the front line.
Yeah.
With your,
Exactly.
so
exactly.
That's why I was wondering, like, in a sense of urgency, I can't just say,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm gonna select it all and send them here because they're just gonna go all in the same place.
So on the subject of
control groups also make a lot of sense, especially if you have units with different speeds, if you want to sync them up without having one unit follow the other. If you can micro, that's also a thing. I would consider myself way too old to micro all the shit. Bear in mind, I'm 26. I'm just used to a different height of playing. So you have to rely on, or you have to check how much you can and want to micro, and it really depends. But in general, it's easier to do it with control groups or try to avoid heavy micro-intensive things, basically, if you can, or if you want to. That's the thing. You might also just front and let others gift you units if you're a micromaster, and then you might be way better than instead of base building, for example.
So what I'll add to the micro discussion is I'm going to drop some tech here, right? A very common scenario in early to mid T2 is to have just whatever tier 1 you had left, thugs, pawns, grunts, whatever you have left, shield tier 2 artillery units that are backed up by radars and jammers so they can't be sniped by other artillery with potentially bigger range. Right? With radar and jammers, your range against other people's radar and jammers is capped by how far forwards your radar bot is, because your radar bot has 900 vision. If the enemy also has a jammer like you do, you can only see them if you can see them via line of sight. Your radar bot is typically your best way to do this. So you want your radar bot furthest forwards, or at least as far as it can go without dying. The most common method for it to somewhat keep up is for you to simply select the radar bot and just click on one of your artillery units so that it just follows the artillery unit around. A very nice tech that I can't remember who told me now, but essentially what you can do is you can select all your units, and if you need to retreat in a pinch because you're getting, you're getting nuked, right, or something, I don't know, you can select all the units, and you can actually hold space and give it a line move command backwards. What that does is it preserves your radar and jammers command to follow the artillery units, but it makes them all retreat as fast as possible, right? As fast as they can move. So that's a useful trick to know. Space is not just for building, right? Space, what space does is it inserts the command immediately in front of whatever you're doing right now. So if I take Blue Cerberus here, right? Let's say he saw a bomber coming here, right? Maybe he was still building this radar. He sees a bomber, he wants to immediately start making anti-air so that his windmills are safe, for example, right? He can, instead of finishing the radar and then shift queuing the anti-air here, right, the nettle, he can just immediately go press space and then press down the nettle, and the nettle will start building as soon as he drops it, if you hold space. So space is very useful, not just in building, but in combat also. So just keep that command in mind. You didn't really understand the space thing. So, space, if you input a command with space, it inserts it at the front of the command queue. This can be used both for just moving backwards your army, or placing a emergency building. You know, you're stalling E quickly. Let's space build a solar, so you stop stalling as much. As an example there. Yeah, so it's worth mentioning, Maximum says space will build units instantly. I just want to worth mentioning, it's not space if you want to do it in factories. If you want to immediately queue a unit, make sure repeat is off, and you want to hold Alt and press the unit. Otherwise, functionally identical to space commanding everything else. Alright, let's move on. I am wary that we're taking a little bit too much time in reviewing this one here, so I just want to get through the major moments here and talk through those. What I'll say here is reclaim.
Major moment should be the yellow push at top, and then the orange push at bottom, and the green-blue one afterwards.
Yeah.
But the other ones, I don't know if I missed something.
So, good commander usage here. You want to just reclaim what is safe to reclaim. This radar, yeah. So this radar, you can see quite far. You pretty much know exactly what Pink has, because Pink's base is right here. So it's unrealistic that he'll hide units here, right? Because he doesn't know you have the radar here, so it'd be very hard for him to hide units right out of radar range. That's what I'll say. And he's not really in a position to be able to afford jammers to protect his units from radar. So generally, I would say you're pretty safe to assume that this is the full force you're fighting. And in that scenario, I would generally probably tell Cyan to help out with this. Get Cyan to drive through here. Pink or Orange will probably try to stop this, and then you can go in here, because you probably win this fight. In honesty, you probably win this fight right now if you fought. But that's just a minor thing.
Information is very important. Like with the radar, you can see the pink dots. You might be able to see how they move if you know enough and know which units it is, but if not, you kind of have to go close and then find out, maybe, to get more info there.
So just a quick thing here. I like your idea here for going to tier 2. You think you think your opponent is poorer than you, which they are, actually, is that even true? Maybe that's not true actually. But anyway, you have more mexes, right? Because you control the hill, so you know you're at somewhat of a resource advantage. So I like that you're trying to take initiative, make T2, and try to win the game here. I would say this energy storage was a bit redundant. You don't really want to make energy storage whilst you're already making the thing that's going to be using a lot of energy. What I mean by this is, instead of making the E-store here, you could have used that energy, the 1,800 energy and 175 metal, and just make this faster. Right? You have 774 income, that is more than enough to construct your tier 2 lab left over, right? Also, just a quick thing here, this geo hasn't been built. Geo, same as metal extractors, you generally want to get them up ASAP. Any sort of geological advantage you want to take ASAP, but that's just a minor thing. I like that you're reclaiming the tier 1 lab after Otsama told you so. Generally, for vehicle lab, there is very little utility in keeping the tier 1 lab alive. It's a little bit different for bots. Bots can at least say, oh, I still want access to res bots, so I'll keep the tier 1 lab around for a little bit longer. I think that's more valid for tier 1 VLab, there is very little reason to keep it around. Very little. So I do like that you are reclaiming the lab. That's good. Along a similar vein, just reclaim these two as well. They not really necessary right now, and the 300 metal would be nice, just to rush.
You got a question from Cian about needing T1 vehicles later, by the way. Just saying, sorry.
T1 C. Who? Sorry. Oh, Livin. Oh, okay.
Yep.
Isn't the time? So, what I would say about that is, you're absolutely right. Right, mine layer scouts, you don't get those in tier 2, right? So that's fine. But the thing is, your goal when going tier 2, half of the reason why you're going tier 2 is not just for the better, stronger units, is to upgrade the metal extractors as soon as possible. Tier 2 metal extractors is a 3x jump. You go from 1 times metal extraction to 4 times. That is half of the reason why you want to go tier 2. So anything you can do to speed up getting the extra metal, the better. You can always just make the tier 1 after, because tier 2 constructors are actually able to make the tier 1 version of the lab that they came out of. So the tier 2 vehicle constructor can literally just build the tier 1 vehicle lab you want to. Your commander can also build it, etc, etc. So generally, the reason why it doesn't matter too much to reclaim your tier 1 lab is metal earlier is always better than the same amount of metal later. So any metal you can have that's not currently doing very much for you should be spent in scaling your metal production as soon as possible. In this case, finishing your tier 2 lab faster and getting your tier 2 metal extractors faster. Okay, I hope that made sense. We're just going to keep going on and watching here. I think generally, again, these have double the range of these and a lot more range than these. So these can be like here and still fire. The only thing that's outranging you right now is this one lasher that green has. And lashers do not do a lot of damage, so you can afford to take a few pokes from it. So if these rocket bots were like back here, then you're actually playing more into what you're actually doing, right? You made these turrets, try to use them, try to bait your opponent to try to finish your units off, only to run into these turrets. That's ideally what you want to do with turrets. You want to make sure they're firing as often as they can be to make value. They're not shooting, they're not really doing very much. Same thing with Commander. I would probably have either use the BP or, you know, go forward and repair your units, which should really be here instead of here. The repair power is not to be understated. If you take an example of the mace, right? The mace is worse than the Thug in this regard, but even the mace, if you use the commander to heal him, he gains more than 100 HP per second. Just to put it in perspective, that's almost 2 maces worth of DPS that you're just out healing if you just use commander to follow the unit. So healing with your commander is very, very powerful, and you should try to do it as much as you can without getting your commander killed. Generally, that is the strength of making plasma bots. They receive healing very well. They're very easy to heal by comparison. And yeah, that's what I want to say about that. Let's just carry on. I think this is about to be the big orange push opportunity here. Or is it? Maybe it's not. Okay, never mind, it's not. I think there was a big yellow fight. So I was contemplating whether or not to comment this, if I'm honest, in the game. I decided not to in the end because I'm going to talk about it now. Essentially, Agitator is 1,300 metal and 13,500 E, right? Take a look at the cost of a tier 2 lab. 2.9k, 16k. You have invested almost an entire tier 2 labs worth of energy and half the tier 2 labs metal in this, right? So you need to think whether this was actually worth it. And even if you do make one, reclaim it as soon as your enemies figure out what you're doing and retreat, right?
I build it mostly to try and ensure the reclaim thing for myself.
I think if I got that correctly, Otsa also says we could compare actually the yellow player and the green player right now with income because of the agitator and the general state, and you should also see some differences.
Yellow player, green player. Yeah, sure, can do. So, yellow player here, they have 1 Geo, 2 E-stores. Yeah, and the tier 2 is finished, right? They're making the con now. For Kyoto here, he has 120 metal in the bank, right? And a little bit more E. So generally, this game, I would say Kyoto played the better scaling game, right? In general, Kyoto's base building order was a little bit better than Green's. But, right, because you spent a lot of your advantage on this, Green actually has tier 2 first. And once Green gets tier 2 metalwork tractors up, the metal advantage for his team here, especially I don't know if Green actually passed the tier 2 constructor, especially if tier 2 was passed to the 2 teammates here, the blue team's metal income is going to skyrocket. Whereas your gauntlet didn't.
About the why I didn't make the T2 lab earlier. I saw that I was fighting 2 of them on the same front, and I thought that I needed the exact firepower the agitator would provide, so they will not get the reclaim.
So what I would say about that is, agitator is deceptively bad at actually defending against an area of units. The shots are not that fast. It does not have a lot of damage per second. You can see here the DPS is 112, which is honestly kind of appalling for the metal cost. So what you'll find here is if your idea was to try to defend yourself, right, you would have been better off best defense and offense kind of thing. Just make units. Right.
Not really defend myself, but defend the reclaim field. So take it without casualties, to say like that. To try and make it uncontested.
So I'm not really sure what you're saying here, because the agitator only controls about here. If I can, I don't know why I can't see the range of this one, but it's about here. If I remember correctly.
Agitator and thinking ahead, it's also important to think what you want to do, because you said your reasoning for the agitator was that you thought you were against 2 people. In that case, agitator would not be a good option, because agitator would range them, and if they would be smart, they would 2v1 push you, and you used all these resources on a unit which in close combat wouldn't help.
Yes, but I thought that I had the bigger army though, but I couldn't outproduce both of them.
In that case, it would be fine again, so it makes sense to think of it, and as Aura said, if the role is fulfilled, if your agitator did what it was supposed to, then you can reclaim it to get more speed for other things.
Yeah, I do mention this a little bit later on when we're actually playing the game, but once the enemy has, decided enough is enough, I don't want my units to die for free, they're gonna back out of the range and never enter it again until they have either a much bigger army or tier 2. Right? At which point your agitator is kind of pointless, so pretty much as soon as it stops shooting at things for a while, I would probably reclaim it, unironically. Because...
And then props on this point to depressed cat girl as well. If I remember correctly, I mean, she didn't retreat instantly, but Otsa told her or him to retreat due to either attack or retreat, and she instantly retreated out. So
yeah,
that was
good.
Okay,
there we go. Okay, that's about right there with the range. But yeah, it's about this. So that's the range.
Yeah, I thought it was enough to scare them off, so I could reclaim that metal.
Yeah. What I would say is, you're defending 1 max, but they don't actually have builds.
Yes. So I was trying to defend that 700 metal reclaim.
Yeah, What I'm saying is, what you're saying is right. consider the value of what you're defending with this versus the cost. Even if you had gotten all of this 700 metal reclaim, that still doesn't pay back the agitator. So, and you're not going to be getting any more reclaim fields in the area because your opponent is simply going to walk away, walk out of range, right? Walk about here because they're not. If they realize this, right? They realize this a bit sooner. They're not actually defending anything by walking into the agitator range, right? Their nexus are here and here, so they can easily just stand right here and right here. They would lose no defensive value whatsoever, and they would have just rendered the agitator, you know, a waste of build power, right? So that's why you have to like. Agitator is deceptively expensive in opportunity cost, basically, is what I want to get across.
So I shouldn't have beat it.
Yeah, because basically, right, with your economy, if you didn't make this, you would have a tier 2 already.
I got it, thanks.
That's the main like concern basically of building an agitator. Could you have just went here? Could you have spent that metal in some other way? And in this case, you probably could have, because Cyan really didn't have a significant army to push you with uphill, right? I don't know if you know this.
Was always flanking me, and I had to constantly move my own army.
Yeah, so what I'll say is, right, you know Cyan is on vehicles, right? They've been on vehicles the whole game, and plasma units, so thugs, for example, right, gain range if they are at a higher elevation, right?
Yes, if they are.
So by sitting here, you outrange all the stouts, all of their maces, right? So defending like here and here is very easy for you.
Yes, but I had to move my main army to cover the valley left from orange.
Or to cover this.
But I needed some static defenses to hold until it can come back after I squashed the flanking attempt.
Okay, that's valid. You wanted to build static and then move your army away. The main thing is, I still wouldn't make agitator in that case because this is better, like cost-efficient static units to deter pushers. For example, you could have even made like several heavy laser turrets, like the I can't remember what the Cortex one's called. It's called Twin Guard. Yeah, Twin Guard.
I know what you're talking about, the green laser ones.
Yeah, so the Twin Guard. I won't build Warden. I'll probably build Twin Guard. Right.
Twin Guard, not Warden.
For the cost of one agitator, you can build like. Was it 8 Twin Guards or something stupid like that? Like an 8 Twin Guards would.
Do note though that the Twin Guard get outranged by the rocket bots, don't they?
Twin Guards do not get outranged, but they do lose eventually because rocket bots can simply be dipping in and out of the range and then repaired.
Exactly.
But they don't, strictly speaking, get completely outranged. If you're worried about that, you can make a Warden. Just know that Warden trades damage for range. There's quite a lot less damage per metal than the Twin Guard, but it does have quite a bit more range, to the point where the enemy would need artillery trucks to outrange Warden.
Yes.
But yeah, anyway, I think that's getting a little bit too matchup specific now. I'm just gonna move on here and